topics. So I wanted to ask you, what have you been so excited about as far as what's been added since we last spoke, and some of your favorite interviews and some of the favorite topics that you've added to the documentary now?
Yeah, we certainly continue to work on production in kind of in phases, if you will. So, the first phase was talking to a lot of the social influencers, and the second phase was really doubling down on ETHgate and going in and talking to as many people as we could. So, since the last time, since we recorded your interview, Zach, we've completed 12 additional interviews and recorded roughly 5 segments. When I say segments, it's kind of like something designed to explain some information to you. And we've been traveling around the country. We've traveled over to Washington, D.C., and we went up to Alaska last week, and we had a couple more shoots here in Los Angeles. And the things that stand out in my mind, when we were obviously it was a great honor and opportunity to interview with Stephen Narioff and to interview with a couple of the folks that are very active in our community with digital perspectives and digital asset investor. And in fact, one interview that isn't in the cut right now, but we also started talking to some of the sleuths. So we interviewed Nerd Nation, and there's a couple of others we're working on getting for that particular chapter. But X is a tricky place. There are some areas that are not as friendly as this area here with you. So we went around to some couple different places, and I take feedback. I take feedback well, as long as you're not coming at me with, slurs and evil, like you're just trying to like hurt me as a person. But if you're coming at me and saying, hey, I'm concerned about this or that, I definitely take that into consideration. And so, I felt like the phase I started to move into after the phase with ETHgate was working on filming some of the developers on the XRP ledger. So we had a great opportunity to interview a couple folks from Sologenic here in Los Angeles, and then we also went off and interviewed Patrick L. Riley from from Res and from Arc Institute and Greg, and we were up there with a nonprofit called Battle Dogs, and it was a lot of fun. And there's more developers coming. So for anybody, just giving that clarity that we're still in production, we're still working on recording. So yeah, so just to answer your question directly, though, Zach, like the interviews that stand out in my mind, Stephen Narioff, if you've seen any interviews with him, we interviewed for him for almost 6 hours straight. I think he's like easily the longest interview I've had across anybody, and had a lot of fun. I think interviewing a digital asset investor, and of course, it's very memorable going up to Alaska. I'd never been up there myself personally, so for myself and my crew, coming from sunny Southern California all the way up to the wilds of Alaska, it was a lot of fun to go up there and to meet with everybody up there who was working with the Arc Institute. It was a lot of fun.
So you mean to tell me, Chris, that you're not interviewing the head of all 8,000 plus XRP Ledger token projects?
No, I mean, I tried to stack rank xrpl.to. You can kind of see some of the projects on there. There are a few other projects we are in conversations with that we'll announce later that we're going to interview and get on there. I'm also just trying to like make sure that we stay with projects that have real world utility, and are trying to do the various things that feel innovative in ways. So, and that are kind of up there and that they exist. No offense to meme coins. I mean, a lot of people, I've made money on meme coins myself, but it's not something that, I want to feature in the documentary. I really want to focus on utility in the future, on the ledger. So, and what timing, right? The same week as a stablecoin announcement. Amazing. So anyways, I think that we've got a lot of folks to chat with in the development world still. There's more work to be done, and XRP Las Vegas is going to be a big opportunity for us as we're filming there. And there's a number of big companies that will be there that we're in conversations with as well.
Awesome. Yeah. And so I want to try to get through my questions so that I can open it up and take audience questions. So if you guys haven't already, please share out this space far and wide, and then you can feel free to drop your comments down below. We'll be watching those. And, any questions that you have for Chris or anybody else up here, please feel free to share. And I'm going to try to go through my questions so that we can open it up. Really do appreciate you taking the time here, Chris. So since you mentioned Stephen Narioff, I wanted to ask you, what did you think of the James O'Keefe expose? I mean, I've been saying that this is going viral, and many folks didn't understand that, right? That the ETHgate story is what, is something that sells. Now, do we want to talk about all the different projects and the utility? Of course we do. That's, part of the story. But I think that what is going to resonate with an audience outside of XRP and outside of even the crypto space is the story of the government corruption. And so, your thoughts on the James O'Keefe interview with Stephen Arioff and the piece that he's now put out?
Yeah, I listened to the whole thing live while it was happening, and I first of all, just as a producer and as someone who is creating content, I thought that it was nice to see the way James O'Keefe put that together because Stephen can be kind of a tough interview. When I was on other programs, Rob had experience with this, and I've advised other people who have interviewed Stephen. Like he has very robust answers, and he's very thorough, but he's kind of like I explain him as being hyper threaded. Like you have to be able to really get the facts in order. Before I even interviewed Stephen, I had hours and hours of conversations with him. So I thought James O'Keefe did a great job of kind of like packaging everything, keeping it on topic, adding a little bit of drama with the phone calls, trying to call these guys. Hey, you gonna answer your phone? Talk to Steven about this. He's got this allegation. And I think James O'Keefe was trying to do, the journalistic thing, which is to question the integrity of anybody with big claims. But I think the thing that makes Steven a rather remarkable whistleblower, if you want to call him that, or interview subject, is that he's so well documented. He's like, well, if you want to reference that, here's a document for it. Or you want to hear my conversation with Vitalik from 3 years ago? Here it is, or whatever the time period is. So I thought that that was really interesting, and I don't think that'll be the last we hear of that story from Stephen.
Yeah, Steven's a character, and we definitely do appreciate him. He's got great insight on what really was going on there. And like you said, a 6 hour interview. I mean, that guy needs a whole documentary on his story alone. So, appreciate you for getting him on board as well. Now, I wanted to ask you, how impactful do you expect this docuseries to be on two parts of it? One is the broader sharing of the truth about XRP and the utility. What kind of impact do you think will be felt from that? And then the second part, as far as like Eastgate, the corruption, and that storyline, how impactful and how far do you think that can be?
I think we're seeing the public response. The pressure is becoming too great for the government not to respond to at least investigating some of these people. So, I think that pressure is already pre existing from all of the research that the community has been doing, from the things that people have been posting for years, way before we ever came on the scene. So, the credit goes to the community and those sleuths who continue the good work of really decentralized democracy and bringing out the story. That's my job is really just to I look at my role in all of this is just to package all that information for a wider audience. So how do I bring people outside of this community, the people who are already here with the questions, how do I bring this story in a reasonable manner, in a way that is able to have somebody who's outside of the space understand it and really kind of then resonate with it. And awareness is always the first step. So I've always said the project's macro goal is awareness, is to bring this story to a wider audience, the audience outside of X, outside of YouTube. Yes, that's where we're posting today, but the whole goal of packaging it in a documentary format and putting it into a streaming platform is so that a wider audience can understand. So, I think if anything, I guess the best case scenario on the government corruption side is that we continue to put pressure on regulators to, one, get clarity for hopefully find clarity in legislation, actual legislation for the crypto industry, rather than using agencies to deploy their policies on the industry, because that's going to help the industry grow. Regulation is a good thing for industry. If I cataloged many of Brad's interviews, that's something extra Ripple's been very clear about, is that they want regulation for this. And so that is something we'd love to see as well. And I hope to talk with regulators, and I hope to include regulators and others thinking about legislation in the documentary eventually. And then the on the second part, the developer side of things, yeah, I just want to highlight the utility. I want to highlight where we're going, all of the different fascinating use cases. I'm not trying to push the actual cryptocurrency itself. We're not going to include price predictions or any sort of like buying advice. I think it's just more about making sure people understand this huge financial transformation is happening. There's a number of segments it's moving on across financial industries, and so we just want to make that story interesting and compelling, and educate an audience at scale.
Yeah, that's good.